Assalamualaikum and good morning to all. Okay, so for this online teaching, I will proceed with chapter 7 on electronic commerce payment system. So let's look at the learning objective, understand the shifts that are occurring with regard to online payment, discuss the players and processes involved in using credit cards online, discuss the different categories and potential use of smart card, discuss stored value cards and identify under what circumstances that are best used, describe the situation where e-micropayments are used and the alternative ways for handling this situation, describe the process and parties involved in e-checking, understanding the major types of mobile payments, and describe payment methods and B2B e-commerce including payment for global trade. The payment revolution. So cash and checks are no longer kings. Debit and credit cards now rule, both online and offline. So this means that online B2C business need to support debit and credit card purchase. So in international market outside of Western Europe, buyers often favor other forms of e-payment, for example, bank transfer. So with the exception of PayPal, virtually all the alternatives to charge cards have failed. None have gained enough traction to overcome the chicken and egg problem. Their failure to gain critical mass has resulted from the confluence of a variety of factors. For example, they required specialized hardware or setup, or they failed to mesh with existing systems. So it takes years for any payment system to gain widespread acceptance. For example, credit cards were introduced in 1950s but did not reach widespread use until the 1980s. A crucial element in the success of any e-payment method is the chicken and egg problem. What is the chicken and egg problem? So how do you get sellers to adopt a method when there are few buyers using it? And how do you get buyers to adopt a method when there are a few sellers using it? So a number of factors come into play in determining whether a particular method of e-payment achieves critical mass. So some of the crucial factors include the following: independence, interoperability and portability, security, how safe is the transfer, anonymity. Unlike credit cards and checks, if a buyer uses cash, there is no way to trace the cash back to the buyer. So some buyers want their identities and purchase patterns to remain anonymous. So to succeed, special payment methods such as e-cash have to maintain anonymity. Divisibility. So most sellers accept credit cards only for purchase within a minimum and maximum range. If the cost of the item is too small, only a few ringgit, for example, a credit card will not do. So in addition, a credit card will not work if an item or set of items cost too much. For example, an airline company purchasing a new airplane. So any method that can address the lower or higher end of the price continuum or that can span one of the extreme and the middle has a chance of being widely accepted. And then ease of use. So for B2C e-payment, for example, credit cards are the standard due to their ease of use. So for B2B payments, the question is whether the online e-payment methods can supplant the existing offline methods of procurement. In terms of transaction fees, when a credit card is used for payment, the merchant pays a transaction fee of up to 3% of the item's purchase price, meaning that above a minimum fixed fee. So these fees make it prohibitive to support smaller purchases with credit card, so which leave room for alternative forms of payment. International support. So e-commerce is worldwide phenomenon. A payment method must be easily adapted to local buying patterns and international requirements as well before it can be widely accepted. And the last factors is regulations. So regulation, a number of international, federal and state regulations govern all payment methods. Even when an existing institution or association, for example like Visa, introduce a new payment method, it faces a number of stringent regulatory hurdles PayPal, for instance. PayPal had to contend with a number of lawsuits brought by state attorney general that claimed that PayPal was violating state banking regulations. Okay, so these are the main critical factors that come into play in determining whether a particular method of e-payment achieves a critical mass. So their failure to gain critical mass has resulted from the confluence of a variety of these factors. Okay, using payment cards online. So the processing of online card payment is essentially the same as it is for brick and mortar stores and involve essentially to the same players and the same system, the banks, card association, payment processing service and the like. So this is one of the reasons why payment cards predominate in the online world. So the major difference is that the rate of fraudulent orders is much higher online. Surveys such as those conducted annually by CyberSource indicate that merchants have adopted a wide variety of methods over the past few years to combat fraudulent orders, including address verification, manual review, fraud screens and decision model, card verification numbers, card association authentication services, and also negative file. So in the same vein, some consumers have turned to virtual or single-use credit cards to avoid using their actual credit card numbers online. So credit cards come in three forms: credit card, charge card and debit card. So what is the difference? Credit card provide the holder with credit to make purchase up to a limit fixed by the card issuer. So with each purchase, the credit card holder receives a loan from the credit card issuer. So credit cards rarely have an annual fee. Instead, holders are charged high interest, the annual percentage rate on their average daily unpaid balances. Visa, MasterCard, Europay are the predominant credit cards. Next, charge cards. So charge cards. The balance on a charge card is supposed to be paid in full upon receipt of the monthly statement. Technically, holders of a charge card receive a loan for 30 to 45 days, equal to the balance of their statement. Such cards usually have annual fees. An example, American Express Green Card. This is the leading charge card, followed by the Diners Club card. Okay, you can Google to see the example of the charge cards. Okay, and then the third one is debit card. So with a debit card, the money for a purchased item comes directly out of the holder's checking account. This is called a demand deposit account. So the actual transfer of funds from the holder's account to merchants take place within 1 to 2 days. MasterCard, Visa and Europay are the predominant debit cards. Okay, same with the credit cards. Processing cards online. So the processing of card payments has two major phases: authorization and settlement. Authorization determines whether a buyer's card is active and whether the customer has sufficient available credit or funds. In settlement phase, it involves the transfer of money from the buyer's to the merchant account. So the way in which these phases actually are performed varies somewhat depending on the type of payment card. So it also varies by the configuration of the system used by the merchant to process the payments. There are three basic configurations for processing online payments. So the e-commerce merchant may own the payment software, where a merchant can purchase a payment processing module and integrate it with its other e-commerce software. So this module communicates with a payment gateway run by an acquiring bank or another third party. So this is own the payment software configuration. Next configuration is to use a point of sale system, in short POS, operated by an acquirer. So merchant can redirect card holder to a POS run by an acquirer. So the POS handles the complete payment process and directs the card holder back to the merchant side once payment is complete. So in this case, the merchant system only deals with order information. In this configuration, it is important to find an acquirer that handle multiple cards and payment instruments. If not, the merchant will need to connect with a multitude of acquirers. And the third configuration is payment service provider or PSP. So, use a POS operated by a payment service provider where the merchant can rely on servers operated by this third party. In this case, the payment service provider connect with the appropriate acquirer, and the payment service provider must be registered with the various card association they support. Okay? Next, it is about fraudulent card transaction. So, although the processes used for authorizing and settling card payments offline and online are very similar, there is one substantial difference between the two. In the online world, merchants are held liable for fraudulent transactions. In addition to the lost merchandise and shipping charges, merchants who accept fraudulent transactions can incur additional fees and penalties imposed by the card association. However, these are not the only costs. There are also the costs associated with combating fraudulent transactions. So these include the cost of tools and systems to review orders, the cost of manually reviewing orders, and the revenue that is lost from rejecting orders that are valid. So in addition to tracking cyber fraud trends, the Cyber Source Service also have monitored the steps taken by merchants to combat fraud. So the key tools used in combating fraud were the first one, address verification system, or AVS in short. Approximately 80% of all merchants use the AVS, which compares the address entered on a web page with the address information on file with the cardholder's issuing bank. So this method results in a number of false positives, meaning that the merchant may reject a valid order. So cardholders often have new address or simply make mistake in inputting numeric street address or the postal code. So AVS is only available in the United States and Canada. Okay? And then the next key tools is manual review. So in 2010, over 70% of all merchants use the manual review method, which relies on staff to manually review suspicious orders. So for small merchants with a small volume of orders, this is a reasonable method. But for larger merchants, this method does not scale well. It is expensive and impacts the customer satisfaction. So over the past few years, large merchants have begun to recognize the limitation of this method and have substantially reduced the percentage of orders that are manually reviewed. Next key tools is fraud screens and automated decision model. So larger merchants often use fraud screens and automated decision model. These two are based on automated rules that determine whether a transaction should be accepted, rejected, or suspended. So a key element of this method is the ability of the merchant to easily change the rules to reflect changing trends in the fraud being perpetrated against the company. Okay, so very flexible. And then card verification number, CVN. So approximately 75% of all merchants use CVN method, which compares the VCN printed on the signature strip on the back of the card with the information on file with the card holder's issuing bank. However, if a fraudster possesses a stolen card, the number is in plain view. Okay, nothing to do. And then the next key tool is card association payer authentication services. So these services require cardholders to register with the system and merchant to adopt and support both the existing system and the new system. In 2004, it was estimated that over 55% of merchants would be using this method by 2005. In reality, only 23% of merchants in the 2010 survey indicated that they have adopted this method. This method is verified by Visa, MasterCard, Secure Code, okay? And the last one is negative list. Approximately 40% of all merchants use negative list. A negative list is a file that includes a customer's information such as IP address, name, shipping, billing address, contact number, and the status of that customer. So a customer's transaction is matched against this file and flagged if the customer is a known problem, okay? So the overall impact of these two is that merchants are still rejecting a significant number of orders due to a suspicion of fraud. The problem with these rejection rates is that a number of the rejected orders are valid, resulting in lost revenue. Okay, we move to the next payment method, smart card. Okay, so it is an electronic card containing an embedded microchip that enable predefined operations or the addition, deletion or manipulation of information on the card. Okay. So although the microprocessor is capable of running programs like a computer does, it is not a standalone computer. So the program and data must be downloaded from and activated by some other device, for example, such as an ATM machines. So this is how the smart card looks like. I believe that you also have one, okay? But now you need to know types of smart cards. The first one is contact card. So contact card is a smart card containing a small gold plate on the face that when inserted in a smart card reader makes contact and passes data to and from the embedded microchip. The second type is a contactless or proximity card, meaning that the card only has to be within a certain proximity of a smart card reader to process a transaction. We also have actually hybrid cards, okay, that combine both types of cards into one. So, with both types of cards, smart card readers are crucial to the operation of the system. Technically speaking, a smart card reader is actually a read-write device. The primary purpose of the smart card reader is to act as a mediator between the card and the host system that stores application data and process transaction. Just as there are two basic types of card, there are two types of smart card readers, contact and also the proximity, which match the particular type of card. So smart card readers can be transparent, requiring a host device to operate or stand alone, and functioning independently. So smart card readers are a key element in determining the overall cost of a smart card application. Although the cost of a single reader is usually low, the cost can be quite high when hundreds or thousands are needed to service a large population of users. For example, all the passengers travelling on a metropolitan mass transit system. And these smart cards, like computers, have an underlying operating system. So a smart card operating system handles file management, security, input-output, and command execution, and provide an application programming interface or API. Originally, smart card operating systems were designed to run on the specific chip embedded in the card. Today, smart cards are moving toward multiple and open application operating system. So, this operating system enable new application to be added during the life of the card. Okay. So there are some applications of smart card. In many parts of the world, smart cards often are used in place of or in addition to traditional credit and debit cards. Within e-commerce, smart cards are used in the place of standard credit cards for general retail purchase and also transit fare. So they also are used to support non-retail and non-financial applications. Okay. In retail purchase, the Credit Card Association and financial institutions are transitioning their traditional credit and debit cards to multi-application smart card. So in many parts of the world, smart card have reached mass market adoption rate. This is especially true in Europe, where the goal was to have all bank cards be smart card with strong authentication and digital signature capabilities. Okay, so they can use their bank cards to make retail purchase, and it is called as a smart card. Okay, so one benefit of smart card versus standard card is that they are more secure because they are often used to store more valuable or sensitive information. For example, cash or medical record. So smart cards often are secured against theft, fraud or misuse. So if someone steals a standard payment card, the number on the card is clearly visible, as is the owner's signature and security code. Although it may be hard to forge the signature, in many situations, only the number is required to make a purchase. So the only protection card holders have is that there usually are limits on how much they will be held liable for. So if someone steals a stored value card, okay, or the owner lost it, the original owner is out of luck. Okay. For transit fares, in major US cities, commuters often have to drive to a parking lot, board a train, and then change to one or more subways or buses to arrive at work. So if the whole trip requires a combination of cash and multiple types of tickets, this can be a major hazard. So for those commuters who have a choice, the inconvenience plays a role in discouraging the use of public transportation. So to eliminate the inconvenience, most major transit operators in the US have implemented smart card fare ticketing system. Okay, what is stored value cards? What looks like a credit or debit card acts like a credit or debit card, but isn't a credit or debit card? The answer is a stored value card. As the name implies, the monetary value of a stored value card is preloaded on the card. From a physical and technical standpoint, a stored value card is indistinguishable from a regular credit or debit card. It is plastic and has a magnetic strip on the back, although it may not have the cardholder's name printed on it. So the magnetic strip stores the monetary value of the card. This distinguishes a stored value card from a smart card. Okay? So stored value cards come in two varieties, the closed loop and open loop. Closed loop or single purpose cards are issued by a specific merchant or merchant group, for example like shopping mall, and can only be used to make purchase from that merchant or merchant group. Mall card, store card, gift card and prepaid telephone cards are all examples of closed loop cards. Among closed loop cards, gift cards have traditionally represented the strongest growth area, especially in the US. Okay. In contrast to a closed loop, uh, in contrast to the closed loop, open loop or multi-purpose card, okay, a closed loop single purpose, open loop multi-purpose, okay. So multi-purpose card can be used to make a debit transaction at a variety of retailers. Open loop cards also can be used for other purposes such as receiving direct deposit or withdrawing cash from ATM machine. Okay, so this is the open loop stored value card. Okay, next quickly we move to e-micropayments. Okay, so consider the following online shopping scenarios. For example, a customer goes to an online music store and purchases a single song that costs RM1, for example. Or a person goes online to a leading newspaper or news journal and purchases a copy of an archived news article for RM1.50, for example. So small online payments, typically under in US $10. So 5 basic micropayment models that do not depend solely or directly on credit or debit cards are these: aggregation, direct payment, stored value, subscription, and a la carte. Aggregation is payment from a single consumer are batched together and processed only after certain time period has expired. For example, 20 business days or a certain monetary threshold. Example, $10 is reached. So this is the model used by Apple iTunes. This model is well suited for vendors with a lot of repeat business. This one is aggregate. Direct payment, micropayments are added to a monthly bill for existing services such as a phone bill. So this is the model used by the cellular companies for ringtone download. So the payment service provider provides a network and e-commerce platform that enable consumers to add purchase of any size to their phone bills. They also support other micropayment options. Okay. Stored value, this is upfront. Upfront payments are made to debit account from which purchases are deducted as they are made. Offline vendors, for example Starbucks, often use this model, and music download services use variants of this model. Subscription, a single payment covers access to content for a defined period of time. So online gaming companies often use this model. And a number of online newspaper and journals, for example like Wall Street Journal, also use this model. A la carte, okay? Vendors process purchase as they occur and rely on the volume of purchase to negotiate lower credit and debit card processing fees. Okay? McDonald's and Wendy's use this micropayment. Okay. So in the past few years, micropayment have come to represent a growth opportunity for the credit card companies because credit cards are being used increasingly as a substitute for cash. So in response, both Visa and MasterCard have lowered their fees, especially for vendors such as McDonald's with high transaction volume. Okay. In August 2005, PayPal also entered the micropayment market when it announced a new alternative fee structure of 5% plus 5 cents per transaction. This is in contrast to its standard fees before this of 1.9 to 2.9% plus 30% per transaction. Okay. So here there are a number of new micropayment entrants focused solely on social network, not the broader micropayment market actually. Okay, so next we look at e-check. Okay, so e-check usage is growing rapidly. The use of online e-check grew by 9% in 2009 over the previous year, reaching 2.4 billion transactions. So web merchants hope that e-check will raise sales by reaching consumers who do not have credit cards or who are unwilling to provide credit card numbers online. So they want to use e-check. Okay. So talking about e-check, you need to know what is automated clearinghouse network or ACH network. It is a nationwide batch-oriented electronic funds transfer system that provides for the interbank clearing of electronic payment for participating financial institutions. So the ACH network is the federal, how to say, an ACH credit entry credits a receiver's account. For example, when a consumer pays a bill sent by a company, the company is the receiver whose account is credited. In contrast, a debit entry debits a receiver's account. So, for example, if a consumer pre-authorizes a payment to a company, then the consumer is the receiver whose account is debit. So, in 2009, the ACH network handled an estimated 18 billion transactions worth 30 trillion. So, the vast majority of these were direct payment and deposit entries. So, only 2.4 billion of these entries were web-based, although this represented a 20% increase from 2008 to 2009. So, e-check processing provides a number of benefits. It can reduce the merchants' administrative costs, it improves the efficiency of the deposit process, it speeds the checkout process, it provides consumers with more information about their purchase. Okay, so that's why they choose the e-check. Okay, you can read by yourself how to processing e-check with authorized net. Please read the e-book. That's an illustration. Okay, we move to the mobile payment. So the term mobile payment refers to payment transaction initiated or confirmed using a person's cell phone or smartphone. Instead of paying with cash, check or credit or debit card, a buyer uses a mobile phone to pay for a range of services and digital or physical goods such as music, videos, transportation fares, books, magazine, ticket. So mobile proximity payments. Mobile proximity payments are used for making purchase in physical store or transportation service. Proximity payments involve a special mobile phone equipped with an integrated chip or smart card, a specialized reader that recognizes the chip when the chip comes within a short distance of the reader, and a network for handling the payment. So essentially, a buyer waves the specially equipped mobile phone near a reader to initiate a payment. So for this reason, proximity payments are also called contactless payment. Rarely is additional authentication, for example, like PIN number required to complete a contactless transaction. So the payment could be deducted from a prepaid account or charged directly to a mobile phone or a bank account. So mobile remote payments. A number of initiatives have been launched to support mobile remote payments. So this initiative offers services that enable clients and consumers to use their mobile device to pay their monthly bills, to shop on the internet, to transfer funds to other individuals, and to top up their prepaid mobile account without having to purchase the prepaid phone card. So a number of initiatives have been launched to support the mobile remote payments. So in each of the cases, the underlying process are basically the same and including the following steps. The first one, the payer initiate the payment set up an account with a mobile payment service provider. And then the user select an item to purchase, the merchant asks for a payment, and then to make the payment, the payer sends a text message to the MPSP that includes the dollar amount and the receiver's mobile phone number. And then the MPSP receives the information and send a message back to the payer, confirming the request and asking for the customer's PIN. Next, the payer receives the request on his or her mobile device and enters the PIN. After the MPSP receives the payer's PIN, money is transferred to the receiver's account. The payer's account is debited. After the transaction occurs, the payment information is sent to the payer's mobile device and his or her account at MPSP is debited. So, in mobile post payment, similar steps are used to enable merchants or service providers the opportunity to conduct post-transaction without the need for special post terminal. So these payments have been labeled mobile post or M-Post transaction. So with M-Post, the merchant utilizes a special mobile service to send a payment request from his or her mobile device to the customer's phone number. Once the request is received, the customer enters his or her PIN. At this point, the service sends a confirmation to both the merchant and the customer. The transactions are completed by debiting the customer account and crediting the merchant account. Even though the merchant is charged transaction and communication fees by the service operator, the cost is substantially less than a post-credit card-based transaction. So these services are aimed at small business and independent operators such as doctors, dentists, delivery companies, taxis. Okay? So this is mobile post payment. Okay. B2B electronic payments. B2B payments usually are much larger and significantly more complex than the payments made by individual consumers because it involves business to business. So the dollar values often are in the hundreds of thousands. The purchases and payments involve multiple items and shipments, and the exchanges are much more likely to engender dispute that require significant work to resolve. So simple e-billing or EBPP, Electronic Bill Presentment and Payment. Electronic Bill Presentment and Payment system lack the rigor and security to handle this B2B situation. Okay? So, current B2B payment practice, B2B payments are part of a much larger financial supply chain that includes procurement, contract administration, fulfillment, financing, insurance, shipment validation, and others. So from a buyer's perspective, the chain encompasses the procurement to payment process. From the seller's perspective, the chain involves the order to cash cycle. So regardless of the perspective, in financial supply chain management, the goal is to optimize accounts payable and account receivable, cash management, working capital, transaction costs, financial risk, and financial admin. So the world of B2B payment continues to be slow to change. The vast majority of B2B payments are still made by check, and the barriers to electronic payment remain essentially the same. IT and constraints posed by the difficulty of integrating various systems, the inability of trading partners to send and receive automated remittance information, and difficulty in convincing customers and suppliers to adopt electronic payment. However, there is some evidence that companies are beginning to move to B2B e-payments. For example, in 2009, the number of B2B transactions on the ACH network increased 3% from the year before to 2 billion payments. Okay. So this is the EIPP, Enterprise Invoice Presentment and Payment model. So EIPP automate the workflow surrounding presentment and payment. So like EBPP, there are 3 EIPP models: seller direct, buyer direct, and consolidator. Seller direct, this solution link one seller to many buyers for invoice presentment. Buyers navigate to the seller's website to enroll in the seller's EIPP program. The seller generates invoice on the system and inform the appropriate buyers that they are ready for viewing. So the buyers log into the seller's website to review and analyze the invoice. The buyers may authorize invoice payment or communicate any dispute. Based on predetermined rules, dispute may be accepted, rejected, or reviewed automatically. Once payment is authorized and made, the seller's financial institution processes the payment transaction. So this model typically is used when there are pre-established relationship between the seller and its buyer. If a seller issues a large number of invoices or the invoice have a high value, then there can be a substantial payoff from implementing an EIPP. For this reason, firms in the manufacturing, telecommunication, utilities, healthcare, and financial services industries use this model often, the seller direct model. Okay? And the next model is buyer direct. In this model, there is one buyer for many sellers. One buyer for many sellers, opposite with the seller direct. Seller direct, one seller to many buyer. Buyer direct, one buyer for many sellers. So sellers enroll in the buyer's EIPP system at the buyer's website. Seller posts invoice to the buyer's EIPP using the buyer's format. Once an invoice is posted, the buyer's staff will be notified. The buyer reviews and analyzes the invoice on the system. The buyer communicates any dispute to the appropriate seller. Based on the predetermined rules, dispute may be accepted, rejected, or reviewed automatically. Once an invoice is approved, the buyer will authorize payment, which the buyer's financial institution will process. This is an emerging model based on the buyer's dominant position in B2B transaction. Again, it is used when the buyer's purchase results in a high volume of invoice. Companies such as Walmart are in a strong position to institute buyer direct EIPPs. Okay. Consolidator. This is a many-to-many model with the consolidator acting as an intermediary, collecting invoice from multiple sellers and payment from multiple buyers. Okay, I think that's all that you need to know. Seller direct, one seller to many buyers, buyer direct, one buyer for many sellers, and consolidator is a many-to-many model with the consolidator acting as an intermediary. Okay, so collect invoice from multiple sellers and payment from multiple buyers. So there are several EIPP options. So a variety of online options are available for making payments in an EIPP system. They differ in terms of cost, speed, auditability, accessibility, and the control. The selection of the particular mechanism depends on the requirement of the buyers and sellers as well. Some frequently use B2B payment are as follows. ACH network. Okay. So the ACH network is the same network that underlies the processing of e-check. Okay. The difference is that there are three types of B2B payments, which vary by the amount of remittance information that accompanies the payment. Okay. So you just need to know in EIPP options and B2B electronic payments. Okay. So one option by using the ACH network, same with the e-check, and then using purchasing card or P cards. So although credit cards are the instrument of the choice for B2C payment, this is not the case in the B2B marketplace. In the B2B marketplace, the major credit card companies and associations have encouraged business and government agencies to rely on purchasing cards instead of check for repetitive, low-value transactions. So purchasing cards are special purpose payment cards issued to a company's employees. They are used solely for the purpose of paying for non-strategic material and services, for example, like stationery, maintenance service, up to certain limit, for example, like $1,000 to $2,000. So this purchase often represent the majority of a company's payment, but only a small percentage of the dollars spent. Purchasing cards operate essentially the same as any other charge card and are used for both online and online purchases. The major difference between a credit card and a purchase card is that the latter is a non-revolving account, meaning that it needs to be paid in full each month, usually within 5 days of the end of the billing period. This is the purchasing card. Okay, fax, wire or wire transfer. Among the forms of online B2B, So fat wire is the second only to ACH in terms of frequency of use. So number one, ACH is frequently used. Number two is fat wire. So fat wire, also known as wire transfer, is a fund transfer system developed and maintained by the US Federal Reserve System. It typically is used with larger dollar payment where time is the critical element. The settlement of the real estate transaction, the purchase of securities, and the repayment of loans are all examples of situations where fat wire is likely to be used. And the last one is letter of credit. So letter of credit often are used when global B2B payments need to be made, especially when there is substantial risk associated with the payment. It is also called as documentary credit. It is issued by a bank on behalf of a buyer. It guarantees a seller that payment for goods or services will be made, provided the terms of the letters of credit are met. So before the credit is issued, the buyer and seller agree on all terms and conditions in the purchase and sale contract. The buying company then instructs its bank to issue a documentary credit in accordance with the contract. A credit can be payable at a side or at term. A side means that payment is due upon presentation of the documents after shipment of the goods or after a service is provided. Alternatively, if the seller allows the buyer an additional period after presentation of document to pay the credit, then the credit is payable at that term. Okay? Okay. So, this is end of the chapter. Okay. See you in the class for chapter 8. Thank you.